looking at writing resumes. I'm excited to share with you a method where you sell your accomplishments rather than tell your accomplishments. And that's what we're going to be focusing on, even as granular a level as the exact bullet point. And because we're such a small group, I sincerely invite you to share questions, comments, anything. This is a give and take, and I think we all always have the opportunity to learn from each other. This is not working.
And if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to, ask. You can also ask in the chat as well. I will read them out as they come in. So please do not be shy.
Okay, it is working. Why wasn't it working before? Oh, okay. So we've already had the introduction. As far as housekeeping is concerned, Laura, you sent the handouts out already. Okay, so all of you have received 2 handouts. I'm going to explain them further during the presentation. We're going to talk about what a resume is and how to write a resume that sells your accomplishments rather than tells your accomplishment. And so you can all take a breath of relief. I'm going to give you lots and lots of examples, so you'll really understand how to do this. So a resume is a living and changing professional and technical document. And why do we say it's living and changing? We do because you can't use the same resume for a position in sales as you could for a position in marketing. So you have to change it based on what the requirements are for the position that you're looking at. And you want to emphasize how an organization would benefit by hiring you based on your strengths, your expertise, and your experience. And you need to deliver that message in a powerful, clear way. So people ask me all the time, what's the difference between a resume and a CV? So a CV is an academic document, so it's done in academia. And you would do a CV if you were looking for a position in academia, whereas a resume is used in the corporate world. There's no limit to the length of a CV because it includes any research projects, any grants you've earned, all the publications all the works that you've published throughout your career. So there's no length on the limit, and it details your entire academic career. Whereas a resume is 1 to 2 pages, definitely not more than 2 pages, and it summarizes your skills and accomplishments of your work experience. Oops. So how do we make a match between you and the targeted position? By looking at the job requirements and translating your skills, abilities, and knowledge. That's what makes a winning combination. So bringing the resume and the skills together, the requirements and the skills together through the resume, and that's how you can make a winning combination. This is the most important slide in the entire presentation, and you have a copy of this slide. So we're going to spend some time talking about this. The other handout you received is a list of power verbs, and personally, I think this list is like as good as gold. The reason for that is it's organized by category, and then it's alphabetical by category. So it has a list of synonyms or words that mean the same as, like, for example, if you were going to say, you don't want to put on a resume, managed, managed, managed. So if you're looking at this power verb list, you can see managed, led, supervised. So it sounds much better. You don't want to definitely use the same verb. So you start each bullet point with a power verb, present tense if you're currently working in the position, past tense for any jobs you've held previously. So let's look at these added values in greater detail. So the first one is frequency. How often do you perform this activity? And the example is reconciled cash register and total sales drawers daily. So there's a frequency involved with it, daily. Now we took the same exact bullet point and added, quantified it. How much money are you working with? So the example changed to reconciled cash register totaling $1,500 daily and made deposits up to $10,000 weekly. You can see that there's a big difference between the first one and the second one. You're providing the hiring manager with a lot more information. And then scope is very important. It's the range of your duties. Did you oversee or manage people? And the example is supervise 10 employees at 2 site locations. And then the last one is actually the most important. It's results, the end result of your participation, and it needs to be in a measurable amount. Hiring managers love numbers. So I'm going to read you the example. It says, improve data retrieval by 10% by creating new database management system for storing client information. This bullet point was originally written, created new database management system for storing client information by improving data retrieval by 10%. And you can see very clearly that the biggest bang in that way it was originally written is at the end of the bullet point, which might be too late for the hiring manager to get that far in your resume. You only have a few seconds to capture somebody's attention. So anything that is measurable and looks good should be as high up at the top as it can, realistically. And also the bullet point needs to start with the biggest bang, not end with the biggest bang. Does anybody have any questions about that before I continue? Okay, so in a perfect world, every single bullet point would have each one of these values. Now, of course, that's not realistic, but the thing is, if you have this document in front of you while you're writing your resume, it's going to encourage you to think about adding a lot more meat or a lot more information to each bullet point that you create, because there's things here that you can answer, questions that you can answer to make your resume more, more robust, let's say. And the nice thing about this is this formula works whether you're you just graduated college and you have no job experience, or you're a seasoned executive and you have years and years of experience. It's the same formula, it's just different information. Does anybody need, everything's good? Okay. So.
Sorry, sorry, we have one question in the chat.
Oh, great.
The question is, can the resume be modern with more colors, pictures, etc.?
Okay, no pictures. Photographs are, and I'm going to show you, I have a slide on frequently asked questions, and that's one of the questions about photographs. In the United States, photographs are not appropriate on resumes. It's interesting that because of my English as a second language background, on resumes in South America, it's very common that you put your picture on and your marital status and how many kids you have. So it's just really interesting culturally, what's appropriate in one place is not appropriate in another. As far as your question on color, I do have a slide at the end of the presentation because people would ask me that question. And it's usually very accepted in the artistic fields to show creativity. You definitely don't want a rainbow, so you want something that's looks very businesslike and professional. And I do have a sample at the end that I would be happy to show you. Is that okay? I don't know who asked the question, but whoever you are, is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And please, I encourage you to ask questions.
Yeah, sure.
So you want to focus on your achievements. Normally, when I look at people's resumes, quite honestly, it looks like a recap of your career, or in layman's term, a laundry list of things that you've done. And what you want to do is highlight your accomplishments. So the expression is, spend less of your real estate, which is your resume, describing your job, spend more time describing your results or measurable accomplishments. So I think that that's the goal. If you get anything from tonight, that would be the goal of what I would want for you. So people all the time say to me, well, you know, Joan, it's really nice. You were in sales, and sales and marketing are definitely areas where you can have measurable results. So it's easier for someone in sales. We live and die by our numbers, and numbers are readily available. So I did some research and I wanted to find other areas where you could talk about a result that was measurable, that you've achieved, that you might not think of. So I have 2 slides on that, and people have provided feedback that this was really helpful to them. So I'm not going to review the ones that are sales related, because we all know that an increase in profits, an increase in revenue, so on and so forth. So the number of customers served or retained, a surge in profitability, the number of people you've hired, the increase in shareholder value, some kind of process improvement percentage, the number of direct reports or the number of people you've managed, any cost containment programs as compared to industry averages, how you rank in performance, and dollar amounts won through successful grant applications. So these are all things that that people don't think of because they're not in sales. They say, oh, I don't have anything that's measurable. You would have a lot more than you think you would have just by thinking out of the box, I guess, so to speak. So more measurable accomplishments to add: an amount of money you've saved the company, percentages of how you've improved efficiency, numbers of anything you've done in great quantities, such as repairing many pieces of equipment, time frames of accomplishment, especially when you exceed deadlines or expectations. So that's something that hiring managers really like to see: exceeding deadlines or exceeding expectations. That's very catchy, something that would attract someone's attention on a resume. Any awards you've won or publications that have featured your work. Does anybody have any questions on measurable accomplishments? Okay. So we're going to look at some examples. So very common to see on a resume, and I've seen many, many resumes on people I've worked with: provided customer service. Instead of that, instead of saying provided customer service and they did a good job, they started with a power verb. Highlight the scope and quantify the project. Answered all phone calls and customer inquiries, including pricing, billing, documenting complaints, and setting up new orders. The hiring manager could actually close their eyes and picture exactly what you did in that position when you look at the difference between provided customer service, which is a laundry list, or responsible for customer service, which is even worse because there's no power verb, and versus the second one. Again, this is something that's really played out. Everyone puts on their resume strong leadership abilities. It really doesn't have any meaning. Instead, provide details. Led a team of 5 to second place win at annual school-wide accounting competition. And you can see that that would be totally appropriate in a person who just graduated from high school or college to put on a resume. So it's not like you need a lot of experience. You just need to think about describing and quantifying it, quantifying the bullet points to make it interesting to someone who's going to hire you, hopefully. Okay, so we're going to take responsibility statements and turn them into accomplishment statements. So this is something that I commonly see also. Responsible for customer data entry. And we changed that to maintained customer data in SAP daily through accurate data entry and monitoring. And you can see the big difference between the one on the left and the one on the right. And then the next one would be, and I said also very common, responsible for customer service. Performed all customer service activities in a highly organized environment using quality and performance metrics. Doesn't that sound so much better than responsible for customer service? And it's really not that difficult if you follow the formula. Because if you think about it, I relate it to my English as a second language background. We teach the WH questions. If you were writing your resume and you started asking yourself, and you'll see this, I think it's the next slide exactly, how to add more value to your bullets. So you take a responsibility statement like responsible for creating reports, and you ask yourself questions. What kind of reports? Who used the reports? How often were the reports created? What was the purpose of the reports? Did the reports produce any results? And you could see how you would be able to give a lot more meaning and a lot more information to the hiring manager in your resume. So let's look at starting with just a plain Jane bullet point, maintain service work schedule. So a little bit better would be maintain service schedule weekly and dispatch delivery tickets. So we have a frequency and we have a lot of information about the scope. But the best one would be maintained weekly service work schedule and dispatch delivery tickets daily for 25 service technicians. So a lot more quantifying, more frequency, and a lot more information about the scope. So this isn't something that's, well, I guess it's measurable. They had 25 service technicians. But you can see the difference between, just making a list, maintain service work schedule, and giving it so much more, making it so much more robust. So we're going to look at some examples. I told you there was a lot of examples. So we're going to look at examples that are weak and ineffective and how we changed them to be strong and effective. So the first one is responsible for the daily processing and payment of cash transmittals. So of course, we don't want a responsibility statement. We want to start with a power verb, process cash transmittal payments daily, totaling $20 million. A lot more information. And then this one, learned how to prepare PowerPoints. Well, I did say use a verb to start, but as far as I'm concerned, learned how is not a power verb. It's not, it's actually kind of a weak verb. It sounds much better, prepared PowerPoint presentations used by senior management in forecasting sales. So who used them? What were they used for? We're answering these questions. And then the next one, assisted with filing tax returns. Assisted is not like, it's not one of my favorite words. I know sometimes you have to use it because you actually did assist somebody with for something or with something, but at all, if it's at all possible, I would try and find another verb instead of assisted. It just sounds weak. Researched and gathered annual company income data required to file federal tax returns for 2 major clients. So before I go to the next slide, does anybody have any questions or anything? And you can ask personal questions too. We're in a small group. So if you have something like, if you are looking for a job and you want some advice about how to do something, please ask me, even if it's not something I covered. If I know, I'll tell you. And if not, I'll tell you to Google it. So please feel free to ask me. So I said that I do a lot of research on job search websites, and this is some relevant information that I've picked up that I wanted to share with you. So it's suggested that you don't use the Indeed email address. I first want to say that I think Indeed is an excellent website. It's available for posting your resume, for looking for positions and jobs opportunities. They have a lot of information on interviewing and resumes, but it's suggested that you don't use their email address. The first reason is because if you're working with a recruiter, you want them to be able to reach you in the future. And the other one is that if frequently calendar invites like you would get from Google or Outlook, sometimes they don't work with Indeed email addresses. So you don't want to miss the calendar invite for an interview because you used an Indeed email address. The other thing is, I don't really need to say this next bullet point, but I say it anyway because it's important, and I'm sure that you all know this. Your email address must be professional. You don't want something like starwarsgroupie@xxx.com. That's fine for your friends and your personal life, but you need to have a professional email address for your work life, for your professional life. And it should be some form of your name, maybe some numbers in there if you have a common name. And then this is also interesting to me because of my English as a second language background, work authorization. if your work experience or education is from overseas, at the top of your resume, you want to put authorized to work for any US employer. The reason for that is when a hiring manager sees that your work experience or your education is from overseas, the first thing they think of is it's a visa issue. And they don't want to get involved with visa issues because number one, it's very costly, and number two, it's very time consuming. So you want to eliminate the possibility of a red flag by putting that at the top of your resume. And then if you're using Indeed, you want to include ready to work at the top of any Indeed resume, because that tells the potential employer that you're available immediately for a position. And that's really important because that's what you want. So let's talk about other parts of your resume aside from the work experience, from your job experience. Education goes at the bottom unless it's a CV, and also unless you're a recent college graduate and you don't have a lot of job experience. So then you would put it at the top as well. So it's formal degrees with the highest level in process first. So it would be PhD, master's degree, bachelor's degree, and then you can include graduation date. And if your major is relevant to the position that you're looking for, you might want to include it. That would be very common with scientists or engineers or anything in the technical field. You might want to identify your major. You also want to include relevant training, any certifications, licenses that you have. And then the last one would be any type of community activities, volunteer work, military experience is really important because there's a lot of companies that are very focused and committed to hiring veterans. So you definitely want to include information about that. And also foreign language fluency. And there's 4 categories of foreign language fluency. The first would be basic, where you know a few words or phrases, but you really can't keep up with a conversation. The next level is conversational, where you can carry on a conversation. However, you might have some difficulty or problems with grammar or word choice. And I speak Spanish, and it says on my resume that I speak Spanish. And I've been, people ask me, would I like to teach a Spanish class? And my answer is always no, because my Spanish is not fluent. So I'm certified to teach Spanish, but I'm not qualified to teach Spanish. So I wouldn't. But I recognize that my level is conversational. After that would be you're fluent, and I'm sorry, proficient. And that means that you can carry on a conversation and you can write, but you're not at a native speaker yet. And then the last one would be fluent, and you speak at a native level. So you want to really be honest about your foreign language fluency if you speak a foreign language. And companies are looking for that. It's a global world. We all know that. Look what happened with the pandemic. The Spanish flu probably didn't go very far because people didn't really go very far in those days. And now it's totally global. So foreign language fluency is something that's really a benefit if you have it.
Joan, you have a question?
Sure.
Should I add my education that's not from the USA? And how long should the resume be? Is 1 page enough or 2 pages not accepted? So it's a 2-parter right there. So adding non-USA education.
Okay, so it's the truth, right? That's the number one thing. So yes, you do need to do that, but I would go back to that slide. Authorized to work for any US employer. What I would do is where you put your name and your cell phone number and your email address, I would put authorized to work for any US employer, because when they look at your education, they would see that your education is not from this country, and you want to eliminate any red flag regarding a visa issue. Whoever wrote that, did that answer the first part of your question?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second part,
The
second
length
part-
of the resume.
the length of the resume.
Mhm.
If you could just hold on, because I'm gonna definitely talk about that. And I'll check back with you to make sure that I fully answered your question. So we were here. Okay, so people ask me all the time, this is a big issue, a stay-at-home parent. Years ago, it used to be called stay-at-home moms, but today the politically correct word is stay-at-home parent. How do I handle being a stay-at-home parent regarding your resume? So some sample wording could be Jones household 2012 to present, or stay-at-home parent, or a job description, career sabbatical to raise children. I would recommend that you do a Google search on companies that hire moms returning to work, or how to handle resume gap as stay-at-home parent. And if that is the case of what you're dealing with, I would take a picture of this website. It lists 14 companies that are committed to helping moms re-enter the job market. And there's a lot of really good information in there. So if you can take a photo of that website. Does anybody want me to stop and give them an opportunity to do that?
I'll find it and I'll copy paste it in the chat.
Oh, that would be great. Do you want me to? I'll wait while you do that. You can let me know.
Sure. While I do that, I do have a question about the language proficiency. How would you put that on the resume? Would you put like Spanish and in parentheses, like proficient or beginner?
I would put Spanish, fluent, speak Spanish fluently, or speak Spanish at conversational level, or speak basic Spanish. So you could use any of those designations. Do you speak Spanish?
Yes.
Yes, but I would assume, do you read it and write it too?
Well enough, I guess.
Yeah, so you see, that's a big difference. I mean, I speak Spanish and I understand it, but I can't write it. I can
Mhm.
read it. So that's a really big advantage. And I think that, Spanish might be like this really actually the second language in the United States. So it's really important to put that on a resume, because it's important to a lot of companies. Did you get that?
Yep.
The
I put
working
it-
mom? Did
Yep,
I
it's in
answer
the
this?
chat.
Oh, the second part of the question I said I would get to, and I will. So gaps in a resume. How do you explain gaps in a resume? So I'm just going to give you a few examples. It's totally appropriate to have a gap in your resume if you're taking care of a sick relative or a child, if you're furthering your education, or if you're self-employed. And if you are self-employed, you can use the title consultant, and I would suggest that you group all the freelance work together. And the other thing is, I'm going to touch on this, highlight any unpaid employment history. And I'm going to go back to here where we had the optional information. So if you have a gap in your resume and you were involved, I'm just going to make this up, if you were the responsible for event planning, fundraising for the Red Cross, you would want to treat this as if it was a paid position. You would want to talk about the name of the organization, how many members it has, what your specific responsibilities were, any accomplishments that you had there. So there's ways to take those gaps and make it look like there was productivity at that time, and that you have skills and accomplishments, even though they're not necessarily related to a company. And those skills and accomplishments are definitely transferable to the corporate world. So that was gaps. Also use years on your resume rather than months and years to make the gaps not as noticeable. And above all, don't lie. All employers today do a background check and they verify your work history. My sister's involved in human resources, and someone got a job at her company and they said they went to a university and graduated, and the background check took a little longer, and the person was already working, and they wound up losing their job because when the background check came back, it said that they didn't graduate that university. So that's a big no-no. So frequently asked questions, and here's where I think it's the next slide where I get to that. what verb tense should be used. You want to use the present if the action is still in progress, and the past tense if the action has been completed. Don't use any pronouns, I, me, or my. We talked about photographs, not appropriate. It's okay to have gaps in your resume, especially for a student or a stay-at-home parent. And I want to give you an example of what's a resume don't. I didn't mention this in my introduction. I work privately with international business executives from Johnson & Johnson, and I privately coach them on business communications. So I had an Asian woman, and she had a 7-page resume. And the example I'm going to give you is not hers, but it'll all make sense in the end. So what's a resume don't? Any skill or job responsibility in a bullet point should never be repeated. So the example is someone I worked with in the hospitality industry, and he had developed relationships with key hospitality contacts in his current job and in 2 past jobs. Once you say you've done something, you don't need to repeat it. And that's how we were able to get her 7-page resume down to a 2-page resume, because she had so much repetition under each position, and there's just no need to do that. Somebody's not going to read they're not going to read more than a 2-page resume. If you're lucky, they'll read the 2nd page. So you really want to be careful with that. And here's where your question comes in. What online platforms are important? An updated profile on LinkedIn is vital. It's imperative that your profile matches your resume. There can't be any inconsistencies in the dates. So for example, if your LinkedIn profile says that you left a job in December of 2019, your resume can't say that you left your job in January 2020. That's an immediate red flag, and that puts you in the no pile. So you don't want to lose a position because of a silly mistake with dates. So all your dates have to match. It's also suggested that you put your URL on your link include your LinkedIn URL on your resume, because they're going to look anyway. So why don't you make it easy for them? Hiring managers frequently check LinkedIn before they bring people in to interview. We talked about handling gaps in the resume. You want to highlight any unpaid employment history or volunteer work as if it was a paid position. So we get to what is the best margin size and font. For most resumes, a 1-inch margin is appropriate, but you want to make sure that you have white space. So before I was asked about 1 page, 2 pages. You can't have a 1/2 page resume or a 1.5 page resume. And this is where the playing around with the margins and the font can really help, because it's incomplete if it's a 1/2 page, and it's incomplete if it's a 1.5 pages. It's like you just don't have enough. So you can fill in that 1.5 pages with more volunteer work, skills, anything, so that you get 2 complete pages, and that would be acceptable. So white space is anywhere that is not, there's no printing. So you don't want it too cluttered, and you don't want it too empty. But the human eye can't read line after line like a book. They're not going to read a resume if it looks like a book, like a novel. Sans serif fonts such as Arial or Helvetica, and usually 10 to 12 points. Any questions on that?
We have 2 questions in the chat. I'm not sure if one of them may have already been addressed.
Okay, well, we can talk to the person.
Okay. Let's see, they emailed the questions here. So it's, do gaps need to be specifically mentioned in a resume, or is it enough to list the start and end date of each employment? The person says that their last employment was 3 years ago, and they mentioned the end date against that experience. Should they also state that they are a comeback candidate in their profession, the professional summary at the top of their resume?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So I would recommend maybe doing that, or putting it in the cover letter. And when I say cover letter, I'm not really big on a cover letter where you put it in the mail. You usually, when you send a resume, you attach an an email to it. And I would definitely put something like a 3-year gap in the email, or like you said, which was a good suggestion, in the summary at the top. The reason I say that is because it's the elephant in the room. If you don't address it, you're putting yourself in a position where somebody's making a judgment on you that may not be appropriate or fair. So you want to address it up front, be upfront and address it and move on. So it's not a question mark and saying, this doesn't look right. There's a 3-year gap and they didn't say what they were doing. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Okay.
And there was a second question. Does the type of previous employment, freelance, full-time, et cetera, need to be specified in the resume? And this is also from Neha. She asked.
Could you explain that, please, Neha?
Yes. So what I wanted to know is it necessary to specify whether that particular work experience was freelance or was it a full-time or contract based, like, the nature of employment? Is it necessary to mention that in the resume?
Is there a reason you don't want to mention it? I would rather know the reason why you're not, and then I can tell you what my opinion is.
Not really. I don't have a reason as such, but I just wanted to know if it's necessary to mention it or not.
So you mean as saying that you were working part-time?
Yes.
Rather than full-time?
Right, exactly.
That's a good question. No one's ever asked me that question before. That's a really good question. Let me see here. I don't think it's your responsibility to put on your resume that it's part-time. You did work there. The dates are accurate. You can get into that when you get the interview. Why put something on your resume that there's a potential for somebody to make a judgment on that part-time that you don't have enough experience? I would rather get the opportunity to get to the interview stage, and then through the course of conversation, you could mention that it's part-time. I don't think that's, you're not hiding anything. You're just not, it's just, you're just not divulging it up
Right.
front. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. That's what I was thinking, because I mean, it doesn't really make sense to, disclose something that could work against us.
Exactly. Right. It's not like you're saying you went to Harvard and you graduated and you
Right.
didn't. You know what I'm saying? It's just a minor detail, a piece of information that is not that important on the resume. And you can say that if you were self-employed, you can group all your employment that you were self-employed under consultant and just, list the companies or what you did, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And if there's name recognition with any of the companies, maybe you worked with some big companies, you want to name drop a few names on your resume as well. Hiring managers like to know. I mean, that's like from my sales background, when they hire you, they want to know who you're bringing to the table as far as relationships with other companies. And then, was there any other questions? No?
Nope.
Okay, so someone asked me about color. This is my example of a resume that I found online. This person is looking for a graphic designer position, and I thought it was really cool. I liked the way they use the colors. I liked, I just thought the format was really well done, and I just wanted to share that with you as far as a resume do, which would be, if you want to use color, do it in conservatively and in a creative way if you want your resume to stand out. So, Neha, are you looking for a position right now?
Not right now. I'm actually freelancing right now, but once my daughter starts kindergarten, I'm going to start working full time again. So this was more like a future question.
Okay. It's interesting. When I was doing my first resume workshop, I was telling Liz that didn't have their webcams on, and I was, nobody was really talking. So I was doing my presentation and I'm like, I have no idea if they're listening or what's going on. And it was funny because when I finished, they were like, yeah, I whipped my resume out and I was looking, yeah, I had responsible for on my resume, but I also had power verbs. So it was like people were all in between, all over the place, like they had responsible for on their resume, but they also had, managed whatever. So it was just really a good experience, but I had no idea what was going on because nobody was asking questions. They were so intent on, reviewing their resumes. I'm going to say your name. I don't really know if I'm going to pronounce it right. Satya. Did I say it correctly?
Yeah, you can call me Satya. That is
Satya?
correct. Yeah,
What,
right.
Are you presently looking for work?
Yeah,
What field are you in?
Salesforce.
Oh, okay. So you're looking for a position in sales.
No. This is like this is not exactly in sales, but a tool to help like the customer relationship management. So it's kind of a technical, maybe you can say, or administrator position.
Did you work for Salesforce.com?
No. I've
Oh,
just learned Salesforce and I got a certification from Salesforce. So I'm looking for a position as a Salesforce administrator.
very interesting. Okay. And do you have a lot of experience?
No, just
No.
I finished my certification, maybe 8 months of working in Salesforce. They have a free a website. You can go study there and you can write certification.
Okay. So maybe if maybe you might want to think about doing an internship or something along those lines or finding some kind of group on LinkedIn that's related to what you do and see if you can network with them.
Actually, I did search for for the past like 2.5 months, but I couldn't find like any intern positions. But intern positions are especially for students, right? Or
I had in my graduate business class, a lot of them did internships and externships, and I was so impressed by this group of students that I had. They were graduate students, and they were scientists with a minor in business. So they all wanted to do research for companies, which I thought, and they were just, all of them were brilliant, but they just didn't know how to do resumes. So, or interview, and they were all from, not from the United States. So there's a cultural thing too, which, you have to deal with at the same time. So it was really interesting, but yeah, internships are a great way, or trying to find some kind of group you can align with to learn more about positions and what positions are available, any kind of associations you can join, that kind of thing.
yeah, presently, like I'm trying to build LinkedIn links, and also like there is some Salesforce communities they have, and they conduct like workshops or like they have meetings. So I'm trying to catch up, but I don't think any similar available nearby, but there are some in New York. So I don't know, because of this pandemic, they are not conducting anything right now.
Yeah, that's
So
it's really, I really feel for people that are job searching now, because companies are laying off people because the economy, so
yeah,
so
right.
challenged. So it's a really difficult time.
times. Yeah.
Since you mentioned layoff, I have a question. So in case someone gets laid off, like, do they have to, specify that in the resume?
No, no, you're just putting the date, really the dates of your employment at that company. When if you get that far, you can mention it in a that it had nothing to do with your performance. You weren't laid off. You didn't lose your job because of performance. It was, you were laid off because of the pandemic or the economy or anything like, something like that. The company was downsizing. But
Okay.
you don't need to put that on your resume. That's another negative thing that you definitely don't want to bring attention to put something like that might be viewed negatively.
But is it something that's checked in the background check? Like, does the company come to know that you were laid off?
And to be honest with you, I don't really know. Well, for example, I'm just going to say, I don't know the exact answer to your question, but my sister's in human resources. And if people call her regarding an employee, somebody who left her company,
Mhm.
she's not allowed by law to say they were fired or they were laid off. All she's able to do is verify employment. So I think if an employer said something negative about you, like that you were laid off or you were fired or something, you could sue them. So employers don't want to put themselves in that position. So the majority of the time when that situation arises, they just verify, yes, John Smith worked at this company from 2015 to 2019 kind of thing. They don't give any more information than that. They won't say anything about the quality of your work, or that's basically the information that they give. So I don't know what a background check actually finds.
Okay.
But you know what? I would Google that. I bet you could find out that answer to that in that question.
Mhm.
Anyone else have any questions?
Can you tell me like the layout for the resume? What I should, which one should go first, and the
Yes. So you would start. You can use. I don't have a summary. I don't remember if I have a summary. I haven't looked at my resume in a while. But a summary is optional at the top. You want to include your name, your email address, and your cell phone number. I would suggest that you don't put your address because you don't want to limit yourself here also. You don't want to see that you live in Bergen County and the job is in Atlantic City, but you can work from home. So you just don't want to put any kind of negative information out there. So no address. It's not necessary these days because everything's so online and at home. Then you would put your work experience if you're looking for a job in the corporate world. And then you put your education and any skills, like if you are certified in Microsoft Office or any kind of certifications or licenses or that are relevant to the position. So you really, when we started this workshop or this seminar, I said that your resume needs to be a living and changing document. So basically you have the template, which has everything on it. And then depending upon whether you're looking for a specific, you're answering a specific job opportunity, then you want to target your language in your resume based on what the job requirements are. You want to use some of the same language or words that mean the same as. So if it's a big company and they're doing some kind of screening service where they screen keywords, you would pass this keyword scanning. Does that make sense?
yeah, right. So you mean like you can change your resume depending on the company?
Yeah, you can't use one resume for every single job opportunity because the job requirements are different. What's important to company A is not necessarily important to company B. So you need to customize your resume so that it's like from my selling background. You need to sell yourself and let the hiring manager see that you fill all the requirements, or as many as you can, that they're looking for. So no, you can't use the same resume. I mean, if you do, you're not going to have a lot of success. Let's put it that way. You really need to customize your resume so that you're matching yourself as appropriately and as closely as you can to the position that you're applying for. That's a good question, though.
Okay.
I know it's extra work, but the thing is, once you do the template, you can pick and choose what you're going to use based on the job you're looking at.
So you mean like I have to go research how the company recruits, or like how this works? Do you have any idea?
Okay, so do an interview workshop and I do a lot of information about research and planning. For a resume, it's really, what's more important is if you're applying for a specific position, you want to have your resume as close to the job requirements, to meeting and fulfilling the job requirements and showing why you would be the best candidate to hire. So
Okay, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
you don't need to do research
Mm-hmm.
at the resume stage, but definitely before you interview, there's a lot of research that needs to be done. And again, Laura has said that she's going to have me back to do an interview workshop, and we'll go over those kinds of things.
Okay, okay. That's good.
And
Yeah,
I hope that you attend.
yeah, sure. That is required for me now.
Anybody
Thank you.
else?
What about, is it important to have a summary or at the top?
Do you have one now?
I do have one.
Yeah, I'm not against summaries. Does your summary have like a laundry list of things like strong leadership capabilities or that kind
No,
of
I
stuff?
just have a sentence or two at the top. Yeah.
What kind of position are you looking for?
I'm in accounting and finance.
Okay,
I have a job right now, but I'm kind of looking for something else and trying to get more interviews. So
okay. So the best way to find a job is to have a job. So you're in a good position to be looking for something. Are you applying for specific positions, or are you just sending resumes out?
I've done both things, but yeah, I mean, definitely good. I have responsible for a couple of times, so that was
Don't
a
feel
good,
bad, everybody
Yeah.
does.
yeah.
So, so now at least, do you feel like, I'd be really interested in knowing, do you feel like you could do a better job with your bullet points on your resume?
I think I can improve them after, listening to your presentation.
So that makes me you made my day. That's it. That's all I need. So I hope that you use those two documents. The power verbs is excellent, and try to think of WH questions to give more information and make it meaty. Like, it's got to be a description. They've got to be able to see what you're capable of doing. So I think that the way that I teach resumes and interviewing is a little bit different than the way a lot of other people do. I think it's the sales background. I'm like so set on selling kind of thing, I guess. But thank you so much. This was great. I love the questions were great. I appreciate everybody's participation and asking questions. That was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
so much, Joan.
Thank you.
You are so welcome.
I'll be sending out an email to everybody, just like I did before. I'll include the links that Joan had on her slide, as well as a few other links that you guys might find really helpful. We do have a job searching page on our website, so we recommend that you take a look. You might find some websites that you might find interesting. And also, please be reminded that we do have other events coming up at the library. We have some trivia events coming up in February, a repurposing event coming up in March, and an antiquing event coming up in April. And all that information will be available on our website, and you can feel free to register there. You can always email us or call us to ask for more questions as well. And hopefully we'll be having Joan back sometime soon in the future.
Thank you so much. It's great.
Thank you, Joan.
Really good.
Thank you so much, Joan. We learned so much today.
you.
Thank
I'm
you.
very, very happy. It's my absolute pleasure. I think that this is a service that is so necessary at a time like this, when we're so isolated, and to be able to get valuable information for your financial future is just so important. So I wish all of you good success in your job endeavors, whether it's a new job or another job, a different job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.